The Winchester rifle stock cracked against Marlena's ribs for the third time, and she collapsed onto the dusty floorboards of her own cabin, gasping through tears that had long since dried up. "Please, Cornelius." "No more," she whispered, tasting blood on her lips. "My ribs are already broken." Her husband's shadow loomed over her like a vulture circling carrion. "You'll learn to keep that mouth shut, woman. Apache savages been spotted near Willow Creek, and here you are defending them again." His boot connected with her shoulder, sending fresh waves of agony through her battered frame. Marlena had made the mistake of mentioning that the Apache raids might be justified. White settlers had been poisoning their water sources and slaughtering their horses. But Cornelius Blackthorne, captain of the local militia, saw any sympathy for the natives as treason against their kind. Through the cabin window, she glimpsed a figure moving silently through the pine trees. Tall, bronze-skinned, with long black hair that caught the dying sunlight like obsidian. An Apache scout, watching. Their eyes met for just a moment, his dark and unfathomable, hers pleading and desperate. "Get up," Cornelius snarled, grabbing her by the hair. "Supper ain't gonna cook itself." He dragged her toward the kitchen, but stopped when horses' hooves thundered outside. "Militia's here early. Stay quiet or you'll get worse than broken ribs." Marlena crawled toward the window as Cornelius stepped onto the porch to greet his men. The Apache warrior was gone, but something glinted in the dirt where he'd stood, a small piece of turquoise wrapped in leather cord. A message. She pressed her face against the cool glass, watching Cornelius gesture wildly to his companions. They were planning something big, something that would paint the canyon walls red with Apache blood. Her heart hammered against her damaged ribs as she realized the terrible truth. She was the only one who could warn them. That night, after Cornelius passed out drunk, Marlena slipped from the cabin despite every movement sending lightning through her torso. She followed deer trails toward Apache territory, the turquoise token clutched in her palm like a talisman. Behind her, Willow Creek settlement slept peacefully, unaware that their beloved militia captain's wife was about to commit the ultimate betrayal. The moon hung full and silver when she finally saw the warrior again, emerging from shadows like a spirit made flesh. He stood motionless, studying her broken form with eyes that seemed older than the mountains themselves. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and careful, each word chosen with precision. "Why do you come, Broken Bird?" Marlena fell to her knees, unable to support herself any longer. "Tomorrow... Dawn raid. Cornelius plans to poison your horses at the watering hole. 60 men... with repeating rifles." The warrior knelt beside her, his hand hovering inches from her bruised face, but not quite touching. "You risk everything to warn enemies of your people." "You're not my enemies," she whispered. "And they're not my people anymore." Something shifted in his expression, surprise, perhaps even respect. "I am a Yananalnish, Nightwolf of the Chiricahua." "What are you called, Marlena?" The name felt foreign on her tongue, as if she were introducing a stranger. "Marlena," he repeated, making it sound like a prayer. "Come, my grandmother will tend your wounds." Yananalnish carried Marlena through hidden canyon passages she never knew existed, his strong arms cradling her broken body as gently as if she were made of spider silk. The Apache camp materialized from the darkness like a dream. Wickiups nestled between towering red rocks, cook fires casting dancing shadows on weathered faces that watched their arrival with curiosity rather than hostility. An elderly woman emerged from the largest dwelling, her silver braids gleaming in the firelight. This had to be the grandmother Yananalnish had mentioned. Her ancient eyes assessed Marlena's injuries with the practiced gaze of a healer. "Grandmother, it's Papalatla," the warrior said softly, switching to rapid Apache that Marlena couldn't follow. The old woman's expression grew darker as he spoke, her weathered hands clenching into fists. White woman brings warning of poisoned water. It's Papalotla said in heavily accented English, fixing Marlena with a penetrating stare. Why you care if Apache horses die? Marlena struggled to sit up straighter despite the agony in her ribs. Because it's wrong. Because your people have already lost so much, and because ... She looked at Ayana Nalnish, whose dark eyes reflected the firelight like obsidian mirrors. Because I believe there's another way to live. It's Papalotl studied her for a long moment, then began mixing herbs in a clay bowl. Your husband, he will come looking for you? He thinks I'm weak, worthless. He won't notice I'm gone until he wants his breakfast. The bitterness in Marlena's voice surprised even her. All men think women are weak, it's Papalotl said, grinding something that smelled of sage and bitter. Roots, white men especially, they see only what serves them. She glanced at her grandson, Apache man. They are learning. Ayana Nalnish had been listening to scouts who'd returned from scouting missions. Now he approached, his face grave. Your warning was true. White soldiers moved toward the waterholes. We must relocate the horses immediately. There's more, Marlena said, forcing herself to focus through the pain. Cornelius has been meeting with the territorial governor. They're planning to drive your people onto the reservation by any means necessary. They've been poisoning water sources, burning your food stores, killing your hunters. The warrior's jaw tightened. This we suspected, but to hear it confirmed ... It's Papalotl. Pressed a cup of bitter tea into Marlena's hands. Drink, for the pain and for the healing. She turned to her grandson. This woman, she cannot return to her husband. He will kill her for this betrayal. I know. Ayana Nalnish knelt beside Marlena, his eyes searching her face. But she cannot stay here either, my people. They have suffered too much at white hands. Some will see her presence as a trap. A trick. Marlena felt tears threatening again. She'd burned every bridge behind her, and now she was trapped between worlds too broken to return to her old life, too foreign to find refuge in the new one. There is a third way, it's Papalotl sighed quietly. But it would require courage from both of you. The kind of courage that changes the shape of the world. Ayana Nalnish looked at his grandmother with sharp attention. What do you see, grandmother? The old woman's eyes grew distant, as if peering through veils of time. I see a woman who chooses love over loyalty to her own kind. I see a warrior who must decide if he will let the hate of others poison his own heart. And I see a path that leads to either salvation or destruction for us all. Thunder rumbled in the distance, though there were no clouds in the star-scattered sky. It was the sound of approaching horses, many horses, moving fast through the night. They come sooner than expected, Ayana Nalnish said, rising fluidly to his feet. Someone must have seen us bring her here. Marlena struggled to stand, her broken ribs screaming in protest. I'm sorry. I've brought death to your people. No, the warrior said firmly, his hand finally touching her face with infinite gentleness. You brought truth. What we do with that truth, that choice is ours. The sound of approaching riders grew louder, and with it came the future uncertain, dangerous, and suddenly alive with possibility. Cornelius Blackthorn's voice cut through the canyon like a blade. I know you got her, you red devils. Send out my wife, or we burn this whole nest of serpents to the ground. Marlena pressed herself against the Wikiup's hide wall, her heart hammering so hard she feared it might burst through her damaged ribs. Through a gap in the covering, she could see the militiamen on horseback, their rifles glinting in the pre-dawn light. 43 men, she counted. More than expected, but fewer than the force that would come at sunrise. Ayana Nalnish crouched beside her, his hand resting on his knife handle. He cannot know for certain you are here. This may be a guess, a threat to flush out any scouts. You don't know Cornelius, Marlena whispered. He's like a bloodhound when his pride is wounded. He'll tear this place apart stone by stone until he finds me. Grandmother Itzpapala entered silently, carrying a rifle that looked older than the mountains but well maintained. The young warriors want to fight. Their blood runs hot with anger at the poisoned water. Fighting now means death for everyone. Ayananalnish said. We are outnumbered and more soldiers come with the dawn. Outside, Cornelius was growing impatient. You got 1 minute, savages. Then we start shooting anything that moves. Marlena made her decision. She struggled to her feet, ignoring the white-hot pain that shot through her torso. I have to go to him. No. The warrior's voice was flat final. He will kill you. Maybe. But if I don't, he'll kill everyone here, including you. She touched his face, marveling at the strength she found in his eyes. I won't have your blood on my hands, Ayana Nalnish. And I will not let you return to a man who breaks your bones like kindling. His fingers closed gently around her wrist. There is another way. Itzpapalo studied them both with ancient eyes that had seen too much. The vision grows clearer. But the path requires a sacrifice from each of you. Are you prepared to lose everything you were to become something new? Before either could answer, a rifle shot cracked across the canyon. Not aimed at the camp, but into the air, a final warning. Time's up. Cornelius bellowed, Marlena, get out here now, or these heathens die for your sins. Ayana Nalnish stood, his decision crystallizing. Like ice on winter stone. Grandmother, tell the others to prepare for fighting, but wait for my signal. He looked at Marlena with an expression she couldn't quite read. And you, broken bird, you will stay here. I won't let you. You will stay, he repeated, but his voice was gentle now, almost tender. Because what I am about to do, I do not. Do as Nightwolf of the Chiricahua. I do as a man who has found something worth more than his own life. He stepped outside before she could protest, moving with the fluid grace of a predator. Marlena pressed her eye to the gap in the hide wall, watching as he emerged into the pale moonlight with his hands raised, appearing unarmed. You want woman. He called to Cornelius in deliberately broken English. I give you trade. Cornelius leaned forward in his saddle, suspicion written across his weathered face. What kind of trade, Redskin? Your woman ... for me. I am Nightwolf, war chief of Chiricahua. You take me to your territorial governor, you get big reward. Much gold. Your woman, she worth nothing. I worth everything. The militiamen stirred restlessly, recognizing the name. Nightwolf was legendary, the ghost who struck camps in the night, the warrior who'd killed more soldiers than smallpox. To capture him alive would be worth a fortune in bounty money. Marlena felt her blood turn to ice. He was offering himself as a sacrifice, trading his freedom, his life for hers. But she knew Cornelius, knew the cruelty that lived behind his pale eyes. He would take the trade, take the Apache warrior, and then burn the camp anyway, just because he could. She had to stop this. But as she prepared to burst from the wickiup, Grandmother Itzpapaletle's weathered hand fell on her shoulder. Wait, the old woman whispered. Watch, learn. Your warrior is more clever than Hungry Wolf. Outside, Cornelius was considering the offer, greed warring with the desire for immediate violence. How do I know you're really Nightwolf? Could be any savage trying to save his skin. Ayana Nalnish smiled, and even in the dim light Marlena could see it was the expression of a predator who just spotted prey. You want proof? Look behind you. Cornelius spun in his saddle, and his face went white. Apache warriors had materialized on the canyon rim like spirits, dozens of them. Their rifles trained down on the militiamen. They'd been surrounded while focused on the camp below. "Now we make real trade," Ayana Nalnish said, his English suddenly perfect and precise. "You leave this place. You never return. You forget you saw a Apache woman who warned us of your poison. And in return, you live to see another dawn." The standoff stretched like a bowstring ready to snap. Cornelius sat rigid in his saddle, his men looking nervously between the Apache warriors on the canyon rim and their captain's increasingly purple face. Marlena could see her husband calculating odds, weighing his pride against his survival instincts. "You think I'm afraid of a bunch of savages with old rifles?" Cornelius snarled, but his voice carried a tremor that betrayed his bravado. "I got 43 good men here, and I have 70 warriors who know these canyons like their own heartbeat." Ayana Nalnish replied calmly. "But who is counting? The important question is this: do you love your pride more than your life?" From her hiding place, Marlena watched the deadly dance unfold. She knew Cornelius well enough to predict his next move. He would try to salvage his authority through violence. Consequences be damned. His hand was already drifting toward his sidearm, but before he could draw, a new voice cut through the tension. Like thunder. "Cornelius Blackthorne, you will stand down immediately." Governor Pendleton emerged from behind the militiamen on a magnificent black stallion, his territorial guard flanking him. Marlena's heart sank. If the governor was here, it meant this wasn't just a rescue mission. It was an execution party. "Governor Pendleton, sir," Cornelius said, straightening in his saddle. "These Apache devils have kidnapped my wife. We're here to retrieve her and teach these savages a lesson they won't forget." Pendleton's cold gray eyes swept the camp, taking in the defensive positions, counting warriors. 43 militiamen and 12 territorial guards against 70 Apache fighters on their home ground. "Your tactical assessment, Captain?" "We can take them, sir. These rocks will run red with savage blood." "And how many of our men will die in the process?" Cornelius shifted uncomfortably. "Acceptable losses, sir. Can't let them think they can steal white women without consequences." "Your wife wasn't stolen, Captain. She came here willingly." The governor's words fell like stones into still water, creating ripples of shock through the militia ranks. "She was seen leaving your cabin under her own power, carrying supplies." Marlena felt her blood turn to ice. If Pendleton knew she'd come willingly, it meant they had witnesses. It meant this was even worse than she'd imagined. Ayana Nalnish sensed the shift in the political winds. "Governor speaks truth. Woman came to warn of poison at waterholes. We did not take her. She gave herself to save Apache horses." "And why?" Pendleton asked with dangerous softness. Would a white woman betray her own people to save Apache livestock? The question hung in the air like smoke from a funeral pyre. Marlena knew that whatever she said next would determine not just her fate, but the fate of everyone in this canyon. She pushed aside the Wikiup's hide covering and stepped into the pale morning light. "Because what you're doing isn't war," she said, her voice carrying despite the pain in her ribs. "It's murder. Poisoning waterholes, burning food stores, killing children along with warriors. That's not the work of civilized men." Cornelius's face contorted with rage. "Marlena, get over here right now before you what?" She interrupted, her voice growing stronger. "Beat me unconscious again? Break the rest of my ribs? I've got nothing left to lose, Cornelius. You made sure of that." She walked toward them slowly, each step a small act of defiance. The bruises on her face had deepened to purple and yellow, impossible to miss even in the dim light. Several militiamen shifted uncomfortably. They might be Indian fighters, but most drew the line at wife beating. "Look at her!" Cornelius shouted. To his men, consorting with savages, betraying her own kind. "She's no better than a whore." The word was barely out of his mouth when Ayana Nalnish moved. One moment he was standing 20 feet away. The next his knife was pressed against Cornelius's throat, having somehow crossed the distance between them without anyone seeing him move. "You will not use that word for her again," the warrior said. "Quietly. Not if you wish to keep your tongue." Governor Pendleton held up a hand, stopping his guards from drawing their weapons. "Interesting. The great night wolf defends a white woman's honor. Tell me, warrior, what is she to you?" Ayanna Nalnish's eyes found Marlena's across the space between them. In that look, she saw her answer reflected back the truth that neither of them had dared speak aloud. She is the woman who chose courage over comfort, who chose justice over safety, who chose ... He paused, his voice growing soft. Who chose love over fear. The words hit Marlena like lightning, illuminating corners of her heart she'd forgotten existed. But they also sealed their fate. In the eyes of both white and Apache society, what grew between them was forbidden, impossible, condemned. Pendleton smiled, but it was the expression of a snake cornering prey. How touching. A love story that will end in tragedy, I'm afraid. You see, Captain Blackthorn, I didn't come here just to retrieve your wayward wife. I came to make an example. To show both whites and Indians what happens when the natural order is disturbed. He gestured, and his guards raised their rifles. The woman will hang for treason. The warrior will hang for kidnapping. And this entire camp will burn as a reminder of what happens to those who dare to dream of peace between our peoples. The morning sun crested the canyon rim just as Governor Pendleton's ultimatum settled over the camp like a death shroud. Marlena felt the world narrow to this single moment, the rifles trained on Ayanna Nalnish, the Apache warriors poised to fight, the terrible mathematics of massacre playing out before her eyes. "Wait," she called out, stepping forward despite the guns now swinging toward her. "I'll make you a different bargain, Governor." Pendleton's eyebrows rose with mild amusement. "You're hardly in a position to negotiate, Mrs. Blackthorn." "Aren't I?" Marlena's voice grew steady, drawing strength from some deep well she hadn't known existed. "You want to make an example? Then make the right one. Show the territory that justice matters more than revenge." "Justice?" Cornelius spat from beneath Ayanna Nalnish's blade. "You betrayed your own husband, your own people. Where's the justice in that?" Marlena turned to face him fully, and for the first time in 3 years of marriage, she saw fear flicker behind his rage. "Justice would be explaining to the territorial court why your wife's ribs are broken. Justice would be investigating how many Apache water sources you've poisoned without official authorization. Justice would be asking why you've been selling territorial weapons to Mexican raiders while claiming they were stolen by Indians." The last accusation hit like a thunderbolt. Several militiamen exchanged glances. They'd wondered about those missing rifles, about how Cornelius always seemed to have more money than his captain's salary should provide. Governor Pendleton's expression sharpened. "That's a serious charge, Mrs. Blackthorn. Do you have proof?" "Check his saddlebags. Second compartment, left side. You'll find correspondence with Senator Vasquez, along with payment receipts." Marlena had discovered the letters months ago, during one of her husband's drunken stupors, but had been too frightened to act on the knowledge. "You lying bitch!" Cornelius tried to twist away from Ayanna Nalnish's blade, but the warrior held him firm. "Don't believe her. She's been corrupted by these savages." But Pendleton was already signaling to his men. They found the letters exactly where Marlena had indicated, along with a pouch of Mexican silver that made the governor's face go stone cold. "Selling territorial weapons to foreign nationals is treason, Captain. Punishable by hanging." Pendleton's voice carried the chill of a judge pronouncing sentence. "It seems we have our example after all." The shift in power was palpable. Suddenly it was Cornelius under scrutiny, Cornelius, whose neck was destined for the noose. But Marlena felt no satisfaction, only a hollow sadness for the waste of it all. There's still the matter of your relationship with the Apache, Pendleton continued, his eyes moving between Marlena and Ayanna Nalnish. Territorial law is quite clear about whites who give aid and comfort to hostile Indians. We are not hostile. Grandmother Itzpapalahel spoke for the first time, her voice carrying the weight of authority. We defend our water, our horses, our children. If this makes us hostile in white eyes, then white eyes see poorly. Nevertheless, the law, your law, the old woman interrupted. Not Creator's law, not Heart's law, not the law that says when two spirits recognize each other across the divide of race and fear, that recognition is sacred. Ayanna Nalnish finally stepped back from Cornelius, but his attention remained fixed on Marlena. Grandmother speaks truth. But the white world will never accept what grows between us, and my people, many have lost too much to trust any white, even one who risks everything for our sake. Marlena felt tears threatening, but forced them back. Then we have no place. Neither in your world nor mine. There is always a third path, Itzpapalahel said quietly. But it requires leaving both worlds behind, creating something new. Governor Pendleton laughed harshly. How romantic. But reality has teeth, old woman. The territorial government will not allow a white woman to live among hostiles, nor will we permit an Apache war chief to shelter traitors. What if he weren't an Apache war chief anymore? The words left Marlena's lips before she'd fully formed the thought, but once spoken, it felt inevitable. What if we both chose to become something else entirely? Ayanna Nalnish stared at her, understanding dawning in his dark eyes. You would truly leave everything? Your people, your past, your very identity? What identity? I'm a woman whose husband breaks her bones for entertainment, whose people condone murder if it's done to the right victims. That's not an identity worth keeping. She looked around the circle of faces, white and Apache, young and old, all watching this moment. That would reshape the future. But you'd be giving up so much more. Your position, your people's respect, your place in their history. My place in history is written in blood and vengeance, he said softly. Perhaps it is time to write a different story. Pendleton's patience was wearing thin. This is all very touching, but the law remains the law. Unless you have a specific proposal that serves territorial interests. Marlena looked at the governor, then at the surrounding weapons, the volatile mix of desperate people balanced on the edge of violence. She thought of all the deaths that would come if the standoff exploded into warfare. All the children, white and Apache, who would grow up orphaned by hatred. I do have a proposal, she said finally, but it will require courage from everyone. Here, and it will mean accepting that sometimes love is stronger than law. The canyon fell silent except for the whisper of wind through stone and the distant cry of a hawk circling overhead. Marlena stood at the center of two worlds, feeling the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders like a physical thing. My proposal is simple, she began, her voice carrying clearly in the thin mountain air. Ayanna Nalnish renounces his position as war chief and leaves the Chiricahua permanently. I renounce my citizenship and any claim to territorial protection. We both disappear from your jurisdictions entirely. Governor Pendleton frowned. Disappear to where? This is all territorial land, not all of it. Grandmother Itzpapalahel stepped forward, her ancient eyes bright with possibilities. Beyond the red canyons, past the place where three rivers meet, there is land that belongs to no government. Mexican law ends at the ancient boundary stones. American law has not yet reached so far. In that place between places, a man and woman might make their own law. The Forbidden's Valley, whispered one of the militia men. That's cursed land, grandmother. Nothing grows there. Its Papalitla smiled, revealing teeth worn smooth by years of wisdom. Nothing grows there because no one has tried to make it grow. But with Apache knowledge of water and earth, with white determination and tools ... double quotes, she shrugged. Perhaps the curse is just the absence of hope. Ayana Nalnish studied Marlena's face as if memorizing it. You would go to a place with no law, no safety, no certainty, where we might starve or die of thirst or be killed by bandits. I'd rather die free with you than live in chains without you, she replied, and meant every word. But I won't ask you to give up everything for a broken white woman. Your people need you. Your war against the encroachment will continue with or without me, he interrupted. There are others who can lead the fight. But there is only one woman who looked at Apache's suffering and chose compassion over comfort. Only one who would risk everything to prevent the poisoning of our horses. Cornelius, still under guard but no longer the center of attention, made a sound of pure disgust. You'd throw away your birthright for a savage? Your white blood? Your Christian soul? Marlena turned to face her husband one last time. My Christian soul tells me that love is stronger than hate, Cornelius. That mercy matters more than vengeance. If that makes me a traitor to your version of whiteness, then I wear that treason proudly. Governor Pendleton was calculating rapidly, weighing political advantages. If you both disappear permanently, it solves several problems. No martyrs, no ongoing provocations. But how do I know you won't return when conditions improve? Because we'll have no reason to return, Ayana Nalnish said. Our old lives will be dead to us. We'll build something new or die in the attempt. And what of the charges against you both? Treason, kidnapping, conspiracy. Drop them, Grandmother Itzpapalatl said with surprising authority. You have your real traitor, she nodded toward Cornelius. Let him hang for selling territorial weapons. Let his crimes be the example you make, not the love between two people who chose courage over hatred. The old woman's words carried unexpected weight. Several militiamen nodded agreement. They'd rather see their corrupt captain punished than waste time pursuing a battered wife and her Apache protector. Pendleton seemed to be warming to the idea. And in return for this ... masty ... What assurance? Do we have a future peace? I will speak to the war chiefs, Ayana Nalnish promised. Tell them that the woman who saved our horses goes to make a new life beyond territorial borders, that her warnings prevented massacre and her courage proved. Not all whites are enemies. Perhaps. Perhaps some will listen. Perhaps some will choose talking over fighting, at least for a season. It wasn't a guarantee of peace, but it was more hope than anyone had dared express in months. Marlena felt something like prayer rising in her chestnut. To the angry God of Cornelius's church, but to whatever force in the universe blessed desperate love and impossible dreams. One condition, Pendleton said finally. You leave immediately. Today. No farewells, no preparations, no second chances. Once you cross into the Forbidden's Valley, you're dead to both our peoples, forever. Ayana Nalnish looked at Marlena with eyes that held entire conversations. Are you certain? Can you truly leave everything behind? Do you trust me enough to step into the unknown? Her answer was in the way she moved toward him, ignoring the pain in her ribs. Ignoring the guns still trained in their direction, ignoring everything except the certainty that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. We accept, she said, her hand finding his. We'll leave within the hour. And as their fingers intertwined, Marlena felt something she hadn't experienced in years, the wild, terrifying, exhilarating sensation of absolute freedom. 6 months later, the woman who had once been Marlena Blackthorne knelt beside a small creek that ran clear and cold from underground springs. The garden she and Ayana Nalnish had carved from the desert floor was thriving corn stalks reaching toward the endless blue sky, beans climbing makeshift trellises, squash spreading broad leaves over the red earth. Her ribs had healed straight and strong. Her hands, once soft and pale, were brown from sun and earth. The haunted look that had lived behind her eyes for 3 years of marriage was gone, replaced by something that might have been peace. "The tomatoes are coming in well," she called to the man working on the cabin's roof. They'd built it together, from adobe bricks and salvaged timber, with a wide porch that caught the morning sun and evening breezes. It wasn't grand, but it was theirs. Iiy and I-Naazl who now went simply by Ayana. The Apache word for eternal blossom climbed down from the ladder with the fluid grace that had first caught her attention. His long hair was tied back with a leather cord she'd braided for him, and his smile held all the warmth that desert sun couldn't touch. "The trader from Santa Fe brought news yesterday," he said, settling beside her on the blanket they'd spread beneath the shade of a cottonwood tree. "Governor Pendleton's been replaced. Too many questions about his handling of Apache relations, and Cornelius hanged 2 months ago for treason. The territorial courts wanted to make an example after all, just not the one they'd originally planned." She absorbed this news without the satisfaction she might once have felt. Her former husband's death was just another ending in a story she'd left behind. What mattered now was the life they were building, one day at a time, one choice at a time. "Any word from your grandmother?" Ayana's expression grew thoughtful. "She sends word that 3 more war chiefs have agreed to peace talks. Your warnings about the poisoned water, your courage in leaving everything behind. It made some of the younger warriors think differently about white intentions. Not all whites are enemies, they're learning. Just as we've learned that not all Apache accept outsiders." It hadn't been easy. They'd faced suspicion from Mexican bandits who saw them as easy targets, contempt from white travelers who couldn't fathom their choices, and occasional visits from Apache raiders who viewed Ayana as a traitor. But they'd also found unexpected allies, a community of outcasts and misfits who'd made the Forbidden Valley their sanctuary. "Maria's baby was born last night," Marlena said, referring to the Mexican woman who'd fled an abusive marriage and found refuge in their growing settlement. "Strong and healthy. She's naming him Esperanza." "Hope," Ayana translated, understanding the significance. Their little community had become a place where hope could take root, where a beaten wife could learn to trust again, where a former war chief could put down his weapons, where people of different races could work together without the poison of prejudice. As the sun began to set, painting the canyon walls in shades of gold and crimson, they sat together in comfortable silence. Marlena's hand rested on her belly, where new life was beginning to stir. They hadn't spoken of it yet, but Ayana had noticed the subtle changes, the way she touched her stomach unconsciously, the careful way she moved when she thought he wasn't watching. "What are you thinking about?" he asked softly. "The future," she replied, leaning against his shoulder. "Our children growing up here, growing up free to be exactly who they are, without anyone telling them they're too white or too Apache or too anything except themselves." Ayana's arm tightened around her. "It won't be easy for them. The world beyond this valley is changing," she said with quiet confidence. "We're proof of that. Love is stronger than law, stronger than prejudice, stronger than the fear that keeps people apart. Our children will carry that truth with them, wherever they go." A coyote called from the ridge above, and another answered from across the valley. The sound no longer seemed lonely to Marlena. It was conversation, connection, the ancient music of creatures calling to their kind. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked, the question that sometimes woke her in.